G'day, Aussie Gridiron fans. Welcome back to the G'day Gridiron podcast, brought to you by the Aussie Gridiron Network. Episode 2 in our Path to the Draft, our draft spectacular month, where we count on down to the 2026 G'day Gridiron Draftapalooza and the NFL Draft at the end of April. Nick and Brad are back this week. Isaac's actually on holidays this week, so that's why he's not joining us. So we've just got Nick and Brad, but that's okay because the boys are going to bring us plenty of information and plenty of fun times and hopefully something entertaining as well. Don't you say, Brad?
Always entertaining when we got football and everything else going on in life. We need a little bit of entertainment, so the draft will provide that, and I'm stoked to be able to do it with you guys.
I know Brad's always entertaining to the rest of us, Nick.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Maybe not
It just comes naturally in a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways. It's just Brad being Brad, really?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, par for the course. I'll provide the buns. You guys give me the meat. Jeez. Some things that live on should not.
What are you talking about, Brad? I don't know what you're talking about at all.
I thought you were going to say something like, the ayahuasca was kicking in or something.
Jeez.
How bad? Can we just pay homage to Brad's microphone and audio setup now? Because that,
no doubt.
the sound in that clip is horrible, and I'm pretty sure that might have been year one that Brad was with us for G'day Gridiron. So.
I was using a Coke can as a mic or something. It was. Yeah.
Well, it's not the only thing you use a Coke can for. Them.
Oh, okay. No, I'm not.
As long as it's in a
cracker.
can and not in a bag.
Yeah,
Come on,
exactly.
Yeah. Then you put it back in the can. All right, we are going to go through today on this episode perfect team player fits, and later on we'll talk about the teams under the most pressure in this draft. So, boys, let's jump straight into our perfect team player fits, and these are the prospects that would land at the most ideal landing spots for them and the way they play, and vice versa. The teams who pick up a prospect who just fits perfectly into that starting lineup and is a day one weapon for them. Brad, can you think of any off the top of your head straight away?
Yeah. To me, I kind of ran this filter through not just who's good, not just where they're ranked, but where does it actually make football sense? Because I feel like every year teams fall in love with prospects and players in a vacuum, but you can't draft in a vacuum. And you see these guys, they get dumped in the wrong scheme, the wrong roster, wrong timeline, and people wonder, well, why doesn't it all work? So the place where it does make sense, if you ask me, and the number one, I'm going to be Captain Obvious here, is Fernando Mendoza. I think it makes perfect sense that guy goes to the Raiders, especially with what they've done with Kirk Cousins, the signing there, because you think about it, he's accurate, he's poised, he's timing, he's a timing based passer, and he can do it under pressure, which is all things that you need in a Kubiak, aka Shanahan system. So I think that's a perfect fit. He's going to have the perfect mentor for him, and it's quite rare, I think, that you have an obvious pick that matches up with an obvious roster choice on an obvious timeline with an obvious need. To me, this is the easiest one in the draft. And I know that the Raiders potentially could trade back, and I would entertain those offers, especially if you're staying in the top 2 or 3 picks. But Otherwise, unless you're getting something that blows you away, he's the guy because he doesn't have to walk in and be Patrick Mahomes. He just has to walk in, shore things up, let and sit on under Kirk, and then just kind of just roll into it. So I think it's the perfect fit.
I would love for the Raiders to trade back a couple, get a little bit 100%. Of capital, and just take the punt that the Jets and the Cardinals aren't going to pick that quarterback.
It'd be interesting to see because the Jets have the capital to do it, to trade up to get him. So and then how that would be a very Jets thing to do, to give up like 2 firsts just to go
That's
up
the thing,
one
though.
spot.
I don't think that they pick a quarterback straight up if they went
Jets?
to number 1 overall. Yeah, if they went first overall, I don't think that they go quarterback. And that would be very weird. It would be their thing to jump up in the draft and then not pick a quarterback as well.
I was going to say, but then why would you do it? Because Mendoza's going to go number 1.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
It'd only be someone else, I think, lower in the draft that might want to jump up to secure somebody that they think might get taken ahead of them. In lower, I mean the top 10, that they might think get taken ahead of them by teams, because there's a lot of teams in the top 10 that have pretty identical needs of big holes in their rosters. So I'll give you one. Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, Brad. Out of your Ducks.
Now we go. Here we go.
Ducks.
I think Kenyon Sadiq's ideal and absolute perfect landing spot in this draft is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes. I got it. I'm with you. Go, preach.
I think even with, you've got Travis Kelce returning for a 14th season, but Kenyon Sadiq is an athletic pass catcher, and it would be ideal to have him in position to essentially shadow and learn from who is going to end up being an all-time great in Travis Kelce, and become the next cornerstone of that offense, but with Patrick Mahomes, the same as we've seen Kelce become. And for Andy Reid to not have to really change a lot of the scheme at that position as well, I think it's such an ideal pick for both the Chiefs and Kenyon Sadiq. I think both would grow and be amazing there. I think he's got athleticism that Kelce never had as well. A 4.39 40-yard is incredibly quick for most players, let alone a tight end. And I'm pretty sure Travis Kelce wasn't doing that out of college. Yeah, and obviously Kelce hasn't been real effective downfield in the last couple of seasons. So you put Sadiq in there, maybe you run 2 tight end, you run 13 personnel for a little bit, and you have him running downfield and Kelce's still just rolling out and playing short coverage stuff for Mahomes to as a safety blanket. So I think that'd be 2 absolutely ideal fits.
I love this pick personally. I love that thinking, and I know that they have a huge need on defense. I get that. We all know that. But really, you want to maximize Mahomes, and you want to keep Mahomes happy. And I think it's the absolute perfect fit for him because he is the prototypical modern tight end. He can run like a wide receiver, and he can block like a tight end. So he is a not as obviously experienced or good version of Travis Kelce, who revolutionized the position, in my opinion. So I think he's a much better version than what's his name out of Atlanta, who came out and was the 5th pick. Yeah, Kyle Pitts. Yeah. So I think he's a much more stout and a way better blocker than Kyle Pitts. So I love it. And if your teams, you just got to be other teams. You got to be pissed off if they just get another amazing tight end.
And I think even in last year's class, like we had Warren and we had Loveland, I think it'd be ahead of those two guys as well.
Yep.
Like even if it's in
Yep.
last year's class.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
agree with that,
Good
Brad.
point. Yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, they need defense. I would probably say even they need defense more. But
Yeah,
I think you have to factor in that
yeah.
whole Mahomes thing.
What have you got for us, Nick? Who's the most ideal fit franchise to player?
I'm going. I've thought about this a bit more tactically. I've baked in probably where this player is going to go. It is sort of later in the first round, based on a massive hole for this team. Um, and I'm actually going to go Caden Proctor to the Texans. So I've seen him in a lot of sort of second rounds and the first round picks. So I think ideally he would start at left tackle. I think there's a fail safe with this pick that even if he doesn't work, like if because he's a big dude. I think he's about 350 pounds, like 6'8", 350 pounds. Like he's 100 pounds off being a good small forward in the NBA. Um,
Yeah.
like he's a massive dude, absolute massive dude. So even if he doesn't work at tackle, I know usually your tackles are your biggest players, but if the speed is too much off the edge, they can always bump him inside and play at either side of the guard. Um, they need O-line desperately. I think Proctor's has got some talent. It's not just all about obviously how massive he is, but he's really good in terms of his actual skill set. He's obviously for his size, his power's insane. Like there's a clip that happened. I don't know if you would have seen it, Brad, but obviously he's playing for Alabama a couple of years ago, and there's a clip where there's a guy that rushes. You've got the edge rusher that comes out on the outside, and there's a guy that
Mm.
rushes the B gap as a blitzer, a linebacker. He's actually taken both guys on. It's actually an incredible video to watch. It's out there somewhere. I reckon it was a couple of years ago when he was first starting for Bama. But
I
yeah,
love
definitely a need for Houston. He'd start instantly. And it's a much needed position. I think that in that spot he can sort of lead the line. Um, he's a massive dude, and if he's able to get his quickness and his feet to a really good level, he can be a really good O lineman in this league.
I like that.
Excellent.
Can I?
Brad, you got another one for us?
I do, and I don't know if you've heard of this guy or, but I love him with Dallas, but I don't think he's going to get to Dallas at the pick 20. I think he's going to go Minnesota. Dylan Thineman for the safety for Oregon. You being a Vikings fan, I don't know if you've heard a lot of scuttlebutt around that or not.
Yep.
Okay.
I have.
Yeah.
Around Thineman, I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he will go there.
Just with the versatility that he has, and having watched him play quite a bit when he was with Oregon, the dude is fast. He runs a 4.35 40. He's got a 41-inch vert. So he did 18 reps on the bench. So he can he can flat out play, but he's so versatile, and I would love to see him with Flores. I just think that having that combination with Brian Flores being able to just move him around like a chess piece, that would be fun in Minnesota. Like I said, I'd love to see him go to Dallas. I don't think he'll get there because Dallas really needs a safety, but I know people aren't that high on safety. They're like the defensive running backs in terms of positional value. But when somebody is as good as he is, I think it's worth taking. So I think he's going to be a good fit with that Brian Flores.
Yeah, my only problem with that is that safety for the Vikings hasn't worked out for the last couple of years. Theo Jackson didn't really light up anything last season for his first season because we picked him as well. Josh Metellus showed that as a safety, he's not real good as a sort of a free safety or in that sort of strong safety position. He's much better closer to the line, which is sort of strange for safeties. They can't play further back, which is great in a Flores offense where they are a defense rather where they are actively moving around. But yes, I agree with your thoughts on Thienemann and the fact that Harrison Smith has been sort of thinking about retirement. We might see him in his last season. It would be amazing for the kid to be able to learn off such an amazing, Hall of Fame safety in Harrison Smith, and learn the game off him. And in the Flores defense would be sensational. I've got an edge rusher. I've got an edge rusher who runs a 4.59, who has amazing quickness, has a lot of smart rush defense, he's already got a series of big moves in his bag. He's got some crazy spin moves that he does off the line to get around tackles. He can jump. He can run incredibly quick. He's incredibly strong. He's incredibly quick through most of the gaps on O-lines. And I've got him going to a team who could definitely use an edge rusher with multiple sack counts through college and bring that to the NFL. And who else is better than the Dallas Cowboys, Brad?
Go ahead.
For Cassius Howell to the Dallas Cowboys.
Nice. Well, they need an edge rusher. That is for darn sure. So it's gone from one of their strongest positions to one of their weakest positions. So I have no qualms about the need. I'm not sure if that's a little bit of a reach or not. And the unknown is Parker, their new DC, Christian Parker. I don't know what he's going to do. And they're saying he's going to run a 3-4, but really they're going to be versatile. I mean, like every team runs 3-4, 4-3, whatever. But if he can produce like his metrics say that he can, then yeah, I'm okay with it.
Brad, I actually reckon it's between. To be honest, I think the Cowboys are the perfect fit for him because they really, really need that position. So do the Vikings, and I actually wonder. You talking about Thienemann? That was something I tossed up over whether it's going to be the Vikings or the Cowboys are going to pick one of these guys. One picks one, the other will pick that guy. Mm-hmm. I think that's where it'll go because the Vikings need to get edge rushers. They need to get quality edge rushers on very small contracts because it's already kicked us in the ass. Going all in last year with two amazing guys on the edge and having to give them contracts, and it's kicked us in the ass because we had to release guys as well. So yeah, Grenard was great, but you got to pay guys. So in the end, I think we need to get quality edge rush talent on small contracts to really go for it again.
I know a lot of mocks had Cassius going like late first round, so
but that's why I was thinking Vikings around that area. The Dallas 20 pick. So, which, funnily enough, is the Green Bay pick that came from them getting rid of their star edge rusher. So it would be very fitting. Nick, have you got another one for us?
Another one that would... I have actually got, in terms of a good spot, we talk about... It's probably... We'll go back to sort of the QB discussion of, it really matters where you sort of land. This would probably be a reach at this spot, unless they sort of get this guy towards the later pick that they do have, although I think they don't have that other first round pick anymore, the Rams. But for the Rams, actually going with Ty Simpson, so a bit of a contingency plan with life after Matthew Stafford. So obviously Stafford had an MVP season. How much longer he's got left with that remains to be seen. I think with Ty Simpson, you can get him in. He's a smart kid. He can play at a high level. He's come from, a really good school. I think he would benefit, obviously, as most guys would, with sitting behind Matt Stafford in the Sean McVay system. They do have pick 13. I don't think the Rams would be spending that pick at 13 to be able to get him. I would assume that they might move back with maybe another team that's got a first rounder, if they were going to do it. But I think in terms of a player that would love to be able to get into a quarterback that would love to be able to get into a system, even if they don't start straight away, but would probably be most beneficial, would probably be that Ram spot, knowing that eventually it would be their spot, and they've got the time to be able to just learn as much as they can, and just benefit from one of the best offensive systems in the league.
Can I throw out one more just because he's talking about Rams. Nick was talking Rams. I think the best Rams fit personally is Logan Jones, center for Iowa, and I've been reading up on this guy, and they're all freaks, but he's a freak. 6'3", 300 pounds, runs a 4.9 40. And he set the Iowa squat record. So we're talking squat lifting. He set 705 pounds. I don't know what that is in kilograms, but that's a heck of a lot. And the thing that makes him a good fit is Iowa's system is all about zone quickness, and which is the same system that McVay is going to run. And you talk about a day one starter who could just show up, learn the calls, be immediately useful. And this is the dude who could do it. And a lot of it's just centered around that scheme, because apparently Iowa's zone concepts use the same language as the Rams offense. So, and there's been a lot of cross pollination between Iowa and the Rams in terms of their running, what they're doing. So this is a guy who could come in and really just set the protections and start almost from the get-go, so I think that's a perfect fit.
320 kilograms, Brad.
So there you go. That's quite a heavy. Imagine strapping 320 kilos on your back and then lifting it.
To put that in perspective for anybody who wonders, the record in competition for the heaviest squat is 595 kilograms.
Oh my goodness! How? 595.
That's what powerlifters do, Brad.
Yeah. And the guy was probably like 5'2", so
it's the range of motion, Brad.
Still.
The shorter way down and shorter way up.
Yeah, exactly.
What was his
versus a guy who's 6'3"?
It's a long way down, I'll tell you that.
That's unreal. Yeah.
Yeah, it is exactly. Nathan Baptist is the guy's name who did that. There've been other lifts, but that they're more the drug meets. This is in an actual competition for United Powerlifting Association. So these are guys who get tested. So nice. This is no juice, but 595 kilos.
I just want to know: do those guys even have knees when they get to the?
They're the Tin Man, Brad.
If you've seen most of them walk, Brad, the answer is no.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no bend.
They walk with a particular gait.
Yeah, they do. Well, that's because their thighs are so thick that you stick a lump of coal in between them and come out a diamond. A week later. So much pressure.
The chafing would be horrendous.
Oh,
absolutely horrendous.
Baby powder every day.
Yeah, you'd have to lube up those thighs, and not in a good way, every day.
Let's move on that bombshell from Brad. Teams under the most pressure in this year's draft. What front offices absolutely need to nail the 2026 draft. Brad, I got one straight off the bat, which should be the absolute tippy top for anybody when you think about this in terms of the coaching staff who are on a very, very short leash, and a head coach who is probably the hottest of hot seats right now. The amount of roster holes and the sheer amount of draft capital that the New York Jets have.
Yeah,
If you can't nail this draft, I'm pretty sure everybody, including the janitor, will be turned over in New York.
Yeah. I 1000% agree with you. They have to nail this draft, and it's not really fair that Aaron Glenn is under so much pressure just after year one. But it's New York, and things fell apart so badly that they have to do something. They've got the number 2 and the number 16 pick, plus the Colts first rounder. So they've got enough capital to be flexible. Like we said, if they wanted to get up to number 1, if for whatever reason, if they fell in love with Mendoza, but they've got so many different needs that where do you start really?
Where do you start? Where do you finish? It's all about that. If I was Woody Johnson, I would be getting somebody in with a sage stick and just going around every single corner of that building and getting rid of whatever hoodoo is constantly in that building for the both franchises should go in together, to be honest. Both New York franchises should do it in that shithouse stadium. Because the Giants and the Jets, they surely need it. Brad, who's that number 1? Who's that franchise other than the Jets for you that absolutely needs to nail this draft? Do you know one? Or Nick, have you got one? Or Brad's looking?
I was.
Go ahead, Nick.
Oh no, Ian. I was going to say, the Jets. It's a good call, but the Jets are always going to be the Jets. So it's not the number 1.
True.
The number 1.
Okay.
Most team, this should be obvious. Number 1 team has to be the Bengals. They have to be the Bengals. How can you keep wasting Joe Burrow's prime? You've got arguably the best, if not at worst, second best receiver. Anyone that shouldn't be touching the ball on the field, they need to be drafting. Defense, O-line, draft them all. They need to hit almost all their picks. If they and most of them have to be defense, and at the same time they've got to be drafting O-line. Because if Joe Burrow goes down again because they've neglected drafting O-line, or I don't know, something else has happened where they get off to a slow start again. Let's say, for example, Zach Taylor's on the line, the GM's on the line, and they'll pretty much just be gutting the whole thing, and they'll end up going right down the bottom with Cleveland, which they were this year, for that division. And you've got your star quarterback who's probably talent-wise, probably the most talented quarterback that they've ever had, even though he's been there for a short period of time. And he's checked out if they have another bad year. Like, if they miss the playoffs again, the guy's already half considering, is he going to keep playing? Is he, going to stay or anything? If he falls in love with another team, if some other team can convince him, no, come on, just new change of scenery, see what happens, new system, new coaching. Bit of an egg face for them if they can't get it right. So 100% has to be the Bengals, because they can't keep wasting Joe Burrow's prime, because it could end very ugly. Another Andrew Luck situation.
I would hate to see that. It would just be such a major, it kind of remind me of you guys, is before your time, but Dan Marino. Marino went to the Super Bowl his second year and never got back. So I would hate to see that same thing with Joe Burrow, and especially just floundering in such a crap hole like Cincinnati.
At the moment, I think Joe Burrow's NFL comp is Dan Marino. Remember his draft comp? They're the same quarterback. They are exceptional passers, quality guys, just all the talent in the world, and just complete basket case around them.
Mm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Unlucky. Brad, who you got?
I would probably, to me, this is the second most obvious team behind the Jets, but is the Dolphins. I feel like they've got a lot of pressure behind them because they've got 7 picks inside the top 100, 11 picks overall, and they really have to make a decision around Malik Willis.
Yeah.
And they didn't just kind of stumble into this situation. They basically they got a new regime. They bring in Malik Willis, but they've got holes all over this roster. So you got to decide: are you going to build around Malik Willis, or are you going to and give him a legitimate shot? Because right now he doesn't have a legitimate shot. But or are you going to plug those holes and just kind of spread it out and take best man available? And really this, which kind of brings me to a philosophical viewpoint about the draft, is that you should be especially in this type of a draft that is not super obvious about the high picks. Just don't be stupid and just take the best guy available. And that's what I think Miami needs to do is no matter who it is, just take the best guy available. And if you can trade back and get more picks, do it as well. Because you're not gonna all of a sudden go to the playoffs or be a playoff contender. No knock on Malik Willis, but it's not going to happen in 1 year. So set yourself up for the future.
Brad, I was going to say, just on top of that, you mentioned trading back to potentially get more sort of cap. I was going to suggest, should they potentially, because they've got so many picks inside that top 100, should they be looking at maybe the opposite and going, well, if we really like a guy, particularly on the defensive end, you've got Hafley starting, he's a defensive guy. So kick his, coaching career off in Miami with, someone that he goes, I love, could be Ruben Bain or it could be David Bay, like someone that's just that, blue chip at the end. Would you be looking at that as well? Or is that probably something that, even though they're rebuilding, they'll probably just take the picks instead and see if they hit on good players rather than one great player?
It depends on where you've got them on your board. If for some reason, we mentioned, I think you mentioned him earlier, David Bailey, or somebody mentioned him.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's,
Yeah.
but if he drops a little bit, let's say all of a sudden he comes, out of the top 5, then yeah, I'm jumping up to try and make that pick. Because he's not going to get past the Commanders, in my opinion. They really need an edge, and you've seen them, with their coach. He's obviously a defensive coach, so he's not going to get past them. So yeah, if it's the right guy and you've got him high enough on your board, and like you said, they've got the capital, so use it as long as you just do it wisely. That's the thing.
I got another quick one for you, and it kind of ties in with the last topic I wanted to talk about for today, which is the draft chaos scenarios, the what if situations. These two things are tied together for me. This both needs to be nailed, and it would be a bit of a chaos situation at the back end of the first round. Did you know that Buffalo Bills general manager Brandon Beane has been there since 2018. And in that time, he has traded up 7 times in the draft, specifically mostly in the first round. And in 2018, he traded up to 7 to get Josh Allen, and then traded up to 16 to get Tremaine Edmonds. He's also traded up for the likes of Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, and Kye Elam as well. Sorry, I can't say Elam properly apparently today. And in a bit of chaos, but also in a bit of absolutely has to nail it, Brandon Beane needs to find a way to trade up again in the first round. They're currently sitting at pick 26. They're just behind the Bears, the Browns, who've got Jacksonville's pick at 24, and the Eagles at 23. Bean needs to find a way to get ahead of those teams, get ahead of the Browns, get ahead of the Bears, get ahead of the Eagles, and pick up a wide receiver, for God's sakes, that can actually mean something to this franchise. Yes, you went out and got more, and you gave him a nice little contract, but you need more in the wide receiver room in Buffalo. And I think there's a little bit of chaos in that draft. I don't know how he's going to do it, but he needs to get up there ahead of some teams, maybe into the 20 somehow, and pick up one of these top wide receivers before some of these other teams make their second picks in this draft in the first round.
That's it. I'm just trying to think all that through. Yeah, I'm not a huge Bean fan at all, to be honest. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is the flip side. I was going to say, because are there, from this receiver perspective, because there's not a lot at the top end, are there really, unless they really, really like someone, is there that's someone that, they're like, we've got to move up, we've got to get this guy? Because I feel like a lot of those receivers are packed into that probably end of first to start of third round sort of round picks. Whereas maybe if you really like Carnell Tate, you can move up for him. I mean, he's going to go very, very high. I just don't know who they can. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I think. Well, to me, there's a couple of them. One, the biggest one would be if the Jets go, and do the Jets and jump up to number one. That would create some chaos, because everybody right now has just Mendoza locked in. I don't even know what the draft what the odds are for him going number one. They'd probably be paying like $1.10 or something like that, something pathetic. But if the Jets jumped up to number one, that would be a big splash. The other one that I think also is the guy I mentioned at the very beginning, when we were talking about like hype versus reality, is Ty Simpson, the Alabama quarterback. I could see somebody fall in love with him and then doing like what Atlanta did last year when they jumped back into the first round to get a defensive end. I could see somebody jumping into the end of the first round to pick up a Ty Simpson, because he's very polar, and he has some people have him going late first round, other people have him going not until the third round. So, and if you're a quarterback and you're like Arizona, you desperately need a quarterback. Are you willing to jump back in and potentially, give up a second or a first another year just to take a flyer on this guy? It seems like every year somebody does, and I wouldn't, but even Charles Davis. Charles Davis has Ty Simpson going third overall in a mock draft, which that's ridiculous in my opinion. So, yeah, we'll see. There's a reason Charles Davis is not in an NFL front office anymore.
Mm. Yeah, I was going to say that was going to be mine. I've heard a few
Okay.
sort of rumors around. You know, and the thing is, and I make this mistake when we do our draft of Palooza. We always make the mistake of we assume that every team knows what they're doing. Every team's going to draft what their need is, who's the best player. You always think that. That's not the case. And my
Yep.
thing was going to be, yeah,
Yep.
the Cardinals are like, oh, now we've got no Kyler Murray. All right, let's get Ty Simpson
Yep.
at number 3. Let's see what we get with that. That was
Yep.
what I was thinking, because then that would also filter down because there's so many D linemen towards the top. That would filter down. So you probably get some teams going, well, if the Cardinals aren't taking this guy, if the Cardinals are taking this guy, and then if the Titans are really in love with Jeremiah Love, then guys, teams might be moving back up. So
Mhm.
that was going to be one thing I was going to notice as well. But the flip side of that is obviously because teams through free agency have planned for Jeremiah Love to be further up the board. What if the Titans don't actually take him at 4? What happens if he actually gets down to pick 8, pick 9? Which is the Saints and the Chiefs, who both did
Yeah.
not, both went out and got ETN for the Saints and then Kenneth Walker for the Chiefs. So again, you probably create some activity where he's probably slides. Then you might get some teams that might move up depending on who they are. Like you could have a team that's desperate of a running back that might want to move up. So could potentially be it. I can see potentially Jeremiah Love because he started out being that sort of end of the top 10 sort of pick. Now he's sort of jumped up to pick 4 based on his talent. But I can see a lot of teams just being like, positional sort of wise. Is he generational sort of running back? And a lot of teams might say no.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
there's a potential for him to drop. And there could be a lot of teams that could just come knocking for him. How
Uh,
far? Yeah. Yeah. The Bengals will take him. Have to draft offense.
please don't. Please don't. Please don't say the Cowboys. Please don't say the Cowboys. Please don't say the Cowboys. Yeah, yeah. No, we tried that with Zeke Elliott when we drafted him fourth, I think it was. Oh, it was great, but we also had the best offensive line in the NFL, and yeah. And we were a legitimate Super Bowl contending team, and Des Bryant did make that catch in Green Bay. I don't care what people say,
That's not what I
but
remember.
it's oh shush. But it's just there's so many again the holes on Dallas, but it would be a very Jerry Jones thing to do to draft because he loves the splash, and that's exactly what he would bring is some major splash. So it just all. I'd love to know where teams have love on their board and how high do they have him ranked. And are they willing to take him? Because, just pure talent wise, yeah, he's probably one of the top 2 or 3 guys in the
Hmm.
draft, but are teams willing to do that? Hmm. Well, he can if he trades AJ Brown. But see, if
Mm.
I'm the Brown or if I'm New England, I do that. I do that because yeah, a late first round pick is essentially a second round pick. Mm. Yeah. Yep, that would be the epic Roseman move. That would be a very Eagles thing to do, but I would
Mhm.
love to see, yeah, AJ Brown.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wouldn't be
I,
surprised if
I,
that
I
point
would
they
love to see
try and
that
go for
go.
a player, like an actual trade for an actual player that's already in the league. You got that many picks.
Okay.
You know, they're a team that, wants to get on the march again. So,
Mm-mm. That's oh yeah, yeah. No, I hate saying it, but I would agree with that. Yeah, it's sick what he does. Yeah, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. So, yeah, yeah.